Good afternoon, dear friends. I'm Yanis Diveris. I am the manager of the IDEA program. And on behalf of IDEA, I would like to welcome you all to this great hall for an exciting talk with Toumazis on what keeps me up at night. A few quick words on the IDEA program. IDEA is a corporate social responsibility initiative of the two co-founders, Bank of Cyprus and the Cyprus International Institute of Management. It is the first integrated accelerator incubator program in Cyprus that aims to assist teams of young entrepreneurs to develop their innovative idea into a scalable and sustainable business faster in a short period of time. It offers assistance to the teams through an intensive training program, mentoring through a network of experienced business persons and entrepreneurs, free first-level consultancy advice through the associate strategic partners of the program, namely MTN, Innovation, Leo Burnett, Deloitte, and the legal firm of Lelos P. Dimitriadis. Additionally, it offers to the teams free office space, access to the network of clients and associates of the co-founders and the strategic partners, and the teams that demonstrate significant progress receive an amount of 10,000 euros as seed capital from the co-founders to help them in their first steps towards the development and funding of their business. We are here to help tackle unemployment, especially youth unemployment, and provide growth opportunities for new businesses in Cyprus. We currently have a fast-track open call for participation to our program for startups that have a minimum viable product, and there will be a call for early-stage startups in June. All information is published on our website, which is www.ideacy.net. On behalf of the IDEA program, I would like to invite Mr. Michalis Persianis, Director of Corporate Affairs of the bank, to deliver his short welcoming speech. Then Dr. Theodoros Panagiotou, Director of CIIM and Vice President of the IDEA Program Steering Committee, will also deliver a short welcoming speech before we give the floor to our distinguished speaker. Michali?
Hi, it's very nice to be here, knowing that no one is here to listen to me talk. So I'm going to try to keep this brief. IDEA has been really a pleasure for us to be engaged in. It's something we deeply believed in from its inception, and I dare say at a time in the history of this country where it's difficult to say anyone's proud of anything. We can say this is one of the things that we can be proud of, and our commitment to this program is here to stay, and it will continue in years to come. I think IDEA is one of those centers that in itself constitutes significant innovation by its very existence. It's more than just finding great ideas. One of my personally least pleasant realizations in the last year or so that I've been in this bank is that, we don't have any scarcity of great ideas. I always was a believer in ideas, and it turns out that's not where the problem is. When we start talking about creating jobs, when we start talking about supporting young people, especially under current conditions, what is needed is not ideas. What is needed is to let the ideas that already exist in people like you to mature and to stand behind them and let them, give them the opportunity to correct any faux pas that might be made, give them the backing that they may need with our know-how, and IDEA is one of those places that I think will act as a shield and as a nurturing ground for these ideas to grow. I think IDEA itself is very excited about the new call for, sorry to repeat the word all the time, but new ideas with with minimum developable and scalable product. But I'm sure the end of this new bid will be very exciting for all of us. The ideas you will see, and some of them are here outside today, are themselves inspiring. And I dare say, perhaps as inspiring as the speech we expect to hear in the next few minutes. I hear there are interesting photos, including many animals, so the expectations just keep rising as the day progresses. Thanks.
when I go to a meeting of bankers with suit and ties, I'm the one without a tie. Today, we are in a meeting of entrepreneurs with no ties, I'm the one with a tie. Just to be different, this is a principle in business, in startups. Try to think differently and do something different than others. Before the idea was established, quite a few people in Cyprus had no idea that there are people like Theopafidis and Toumazis and many others, Cypriots abroad, that are very successful role models for young people to take up entrepreneurship. In fact, it is one of the motivations, at least for CIIM, and I would say for the bank as well, if I may speak for the bank as well, that one of the motivations for creating idea is to exactly provide the role models for young people to take up the effort, the thought and the effort, and the pain, if you like, and the joy to do their own startup. And what a better role model than to bring Cypriots who left small villages like Kebir,
Komi Kebir.
Like Komi Kebir, and with a mother from Kalavasos, and go and succeed in England, in Canada, in the US, around the world. Okay? It was only a few weeks ago that we had Theopafidis from who succeeded in England with entrepreneurship. Now, let me say that we are very proud of our collaboration with the Bank of Cyprus to create IDEA, and with our strategic partners, the Leo Burnett, Deloitte, the Dimitriadis law firm, and MTN. Why are so proud of this? We are so proud because we all these organizations agree at least on one thing, that Cyprus needs a new economic model, a new development model. We cannot continue with the old models and expect different results. If we continue with the same approach to economic growth as we had in the last 10 to 20 years, the outcome will be the same as we had in the last few years, which will be we will build bubbles which will burst in our face. As Einstein said, the ultimate of stupidity is to keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. And we are not prepared to do that. I know in Cyprus there are many people who long for the old times, the old good days, where when they became rich, quickly rich with the bubbles. This will not happen again, we hope, and our effort at CIIM and our collaborators is to prevent this from happening and to establish a new sustainable economy. I only will say a couple of more words before you worry that I will go on. I will not. I will say that CIIM is welcoming you here. I'm looking forward to see you again in many other such activities. For us, innovation, entrepreneurship is the raison d'etre, the reason for our existence, and is our philosophy, and is the reason we do what we do, and because we want to create a new things, different things. And there is nothing more that pleases us than to help the young people to do that through our educational programs, the graduates BBA, our graduate programs, the MBA, the MSCs, and of course our spearheading of this whole effort is our Entrepreneurship Innovation Center, the Toumazis, and of course our executive education center as well. Thank you very much. And again, we look forward to your talk, Tom Toumazis. Thank you.
Okay. And a few words on Tom. Tom Toumazis MBE has worked in the media and entertainment industry since 1983 and spent the first 18 years within advertising, sales in television, radio, consumer magazines, and digital. In 2000, he made the transition into film and television program sales, marketing and distribution, and rose to the role of Executive Vice President and Managing Director of Disney, ABC, ESPN, Television, EMEA, and Canada. In 2009, he was appointed Chief Commercial Officer of Enmotol Worldwide, the largest independent production company in the world, joining the main board. Most recently, he was head of partnerships, EMEA for Yahoo, and prior to that, CEO of Mekong Group, the largest European newspaper group. Today, reflecting the changing media environment, Tom is focused exclusively on the digital and startup world. He is a founder, investor, and chair of 2 startups, TVBit and TaxSmart. And in December, he was appointed the Lat Bible's first non-executive director in the run-up to the company's first round of funding. He is an alumni of the General Manager program at Harvard Business School. Tom is also chairman and founder of the Childline Board, part of the NSPCC, Britain's leading children's charity. Childline offers help and support to thousands of children and young people. Under his 12-year stewardship, the board has raised over £9 million. He was awarded the MBE title in the Queen's Birthday Honours List in 2015 for services to children. Tom is married to fellow Cypriot Helen and has 3 children. He's a keen runner and has recently completed his 7th London Marathon. Tom, thank you for accepting our invitation, and a pleasure to have you with us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yanni, thank you very much. Thank you, Anastasia, where are you? There's just this blur of wall of people and sea of people. Anastasia, Maria, thank you for welcoming me to Cyprus, to Nicosia. It's a real honor. I'm a little bit nervous because my wife is sitting in the front row, and she heard the talk yesterday, so I'm expecting her to kind of do this, and kind of hurry up as part of the talk. But it's great to be here, and indeed, the reason why I'm here is because Simonidis over there introduced me to this whole opportunity with CIIM and the Bank of Cyprus. And it's great to be here. You've had some juggernaut speakers, Theo Bafidi and also John Bates came here. And what I'd like to do is give you some sense of some of the experiences that I've had over the last 33 years. I'm going to introduce you to 3 entrepreneurs that I work with. And I asked those 3 entrepreneurs some of the things that have been happening in their world, some of the business experiences. So I'm going to share with you 2 stories, 2 tips from each of those 3 entrepreneurs, and then I'm going to give you my 4 tips that hopefully you can take with you in your work experience. So there's 10 things in about half an hour or so, and it's me keeping you between the bar and your exit. So I'm going to try and keep it as quick and as neat and as tidy as possible. But I understand that there's a request to do some Q&A. If there are any questions, please, I'll be very happy to answer them. Okay. I put up a picture of a kitchen because I must say my academic career was a bit of a flop. I don't know what happened, but it just didn't happen for me. I was not interested in the classroom. I was much more interested in the playground, the commercial playground, the business playground. That's where I got a lot more of, I think, my learning and my experience and my motivation. But I didn't know it at the time, but my father and my mother both had a very successful restaurant in London, and at a reasonably early age, and an age that I wasn't particularly happy about, I was pushed into the restaurant business. And so I don't know how many of you have worked in a restaurant, how many of you are experienced a restaurant. Okay, you don't need to be mad to work in a restaurant, but it helps. Because it is a very tough environment. It's a very tough, difficult, challenging environment. And in fact, some of the characteristics of a startup and being an entrepreneur, in whatever industry, happen here, between the chef and the inside of the business and the outside of the business. So it's in this environment. This isn't a picture of the restaurant I grew up in. I couldn't find one of those, but I think it's kind of pretty similar to the kind of crazy experiences that I had. That's what I grew up in. And I started as one of the guys that was washing up dishes, commie chef, waiter, head waiter, and then when my parents were traveling, I used to oversee the business. I only put this up because I saw it on the internet. I thought, oh my God. And Miliges is my favorite restaurant in Larnaca. Who's been to Miliges here? Okay, I hope I get a free meal on Sunday because I've been promoting Miliges ever since I landed in Nicosia. But I've never experienced that kind of madness. But I do think that the kind of experiences you pick up in that kind of world are very helpful. Okay, can you hear me okay? Is everyone all right? So, what do I want to talk about? Well, I hope that the reason why I'm here and the reason why I've been invited is that I've picked up a few experiences over the 7 companies that you see on this slide. Some of them will be familiar to you, some of them maybe not. Disney, I think, will be familiar to many of you. Yahoo. Endemol Shine Group is, again, a very significant production business. And I guess the core of what I began to do and what I did well was sales. That's where a lot of my experience grew up. I spent 18 years in advertising sales, and it was a world where if you were good at something, you moved up the organizational ladder. And over time, you pick up different techniques and different skills as you progress your career. And one of those skills and one of those techniques is politics, because it's just not good enough in large corporations to be able to do something, to have an output. It's having a sensitivity around you. It's having an understanding of how the pieces of the puzzle work. And so after 33 odd years, 7 companies, 16 roles, and leading teams of tens to 8,500 and businesses of millions to billions, I made a decision at the back end of last year to move, to transition to helping smaller businesses, startups. And I began to realize that I was much more interested in, instead of focusing all my energy on one thing, to try and explore and help and support a number of different things. I was drawn to more than one thing in my career. And that's the reason why I made the transition to helping and investing in small companies. And the reason why I did that, the motivation for me, was helping businesses get to yes, get to success much more quickly with some of the experiences. And when you, after a period of time, I describe it as you don't know what you know after years of doing things. Relationships that you never thought you would be able to call upon, help you help others make things happen. And that's one of the reasons and the motivation that I am here, and that's one of the things that I'd like to do, is share some of my experiences that I've picked up over the years. So these are the 4 businesses that or I should say 3 businesses and a charity that I spend quite a lot of my time on. I'm going to talk to you about the 3 businesses, but I do want to mention the charity. I spend, some would say, too much time on supporting Childline, but I'm drawn to helping others. I think charity work is important. It's quite a significant characteristic in Western Europe and in the US that executives and people who have picked up experience and relationships try and use those relationships to help others. So if you are not doing anything, and I know that this marketplace in this country has gone through a lot of pressure, a lot of challenge, but there's always someone else around the corner who's struggling and needs your help. So anything that we all can do as individuals, I think is very important. And I don't know whether this country offers support to kids who need help, but certainly this charity has helped over 4 million children over the last 30 years. And it's as important today as it was when it launched. So that's a very key component part to what I try and do. The other three I'm going to introduce to you as we go along the talk, but they're all new businesses. The oldest business you're going to hear about is 4 years old, and the most recent business launched on the 6th of April. All of them have their own teething problems, and we know many of you in the room who I met this evening are launching, thinking about launching, have launched a startup, and it's not for the faint-hearted. You know, this is difficult and challenging, and what you are all thinking of doing in the startup world is to try and create as much of an environment for you to win. And that's what these businesses are trying to do as well. I'm getting a little bit of feedback here, but I think it's okay. Is that all right? Okay. It's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, what keeps me up at night. I think if I'd put a title of, you know, entrepreneurialism discuss, no one would be here. I thought if I put what keeps you up at night, that might be a little bit more interesting. It's 1:25. I tell you what kept me up at night on Sunday is my entire presentation crashed, and I had to rewrite every single slide with my son. And the other thing that keeps me up at night is my melodic wife who snores. I love that snoring, by the way. She knows I love it. She knows I love it. So, let me talk to you about a few businesses and some of the things that have been going on in their world. How many of you have heard of the Lad Bible? How many of you have heard of the Lad Bible? Okay, it's quite a few people. Okay, good, great. Now, when I am out in business and I ask people about the Lad Bible, if you're over 35 or 40, you probably haven't heard of the Lad Bible. If you're in your 20s, you definitely have heard of the Lad Bible, and in your late 20s to 30s, you probably have heard of it. Because this business, which was only founded 4 years ago, is one of the most successful social media platforms in the UK, and in fact, its biggest marketplaces in the US. And it began its business very quietly, predominantly focusing on talking to people through universities. And it caught that infectious, wild, viral nature that we know social media can have. And in 4 years, you now see all these different brands that the Lad Bible has launched. It's not just one brand, it's a whole collection of vertical brands trying to appeal to as many target audience groups as possible. And it has a very different business model. Most websites, most digital businesses focus on page views and dwell time, the amount of time you spend on a website and how many clicks you have. This business doesn't care about those two things. It cares about shares, comments, and likes. That's his business. What it really is interested in is stories that people want to share. And that vision, that approach, very, very early on in its journey, made this business a credible business amongst 16 to 24-year-olds. 31.5 million subscribers later, and on the Facebook platform, 360 million people every month will see and read at least one Lad Bible feed. So this is a significant business, 90 people, makes money, founded by a Cypriot, a 25-year-old Cypriot. And he founded this business when he was at Leeds University. And to give you an idea of some of the stories that are infectious, the first story, the most shared story on the Lad Bible last year was that Ben & Jerry's were going to launch a lactose-free ice cream. Now, to most of us, that isn't a particularly exciting story, but to this audience, they just loved it, and they were happy to share it. I think the interesting thing about the Lad Bible is the second biggest story was a story about a man in Beirut who sacrificed his own life to smother and tackle an ISIS terrorist who had a suicide belt and blew himself up, killed many people. This is the day before the Paris bombing. And the bravery of that man really caught the attention of this audience. So I don't want you to think that everyone that's young is only interested in fun. Our youth marketplace does have a great interest in social issues. And in fact, 2 weeks ago, the management team from the Lad Bible were at number 10 Downing Street talking to the Prime Minister about how do we engage young people in political issues today. And here he is. I think he's the guy on the left, right? So he's the guy on the left. That's his father, Angelo, and that's Solomon on the right from Gadodris, I'm reliably told. And he launched this business with a fellow friend and university student. He was at Leeds, his friend was at Liverpool University, and gradually it became a very significant business. 2 things I want to tell you about the Lad Bible that might be relevant today to you. Firstly, this business you might think was launched in London within the M25 in Tech City. Actually, this business was launched in Manchester. And the reason that Solly believes the success of the Lad Bible is where it is today is because it was away from the big action of London. And it allowed the business and allowed the management team to recruit people at a low cost who were coming out of the universities locally. And they were able to draw roots and build a business before it was obvious that this was a very significant threat to a number of established media companies. So these guys are competing with Vice. I don't know how many of you know the Vice business, but it's a very, very successful global business. Been around for over 20 years, but very successful, and BuzzFeed. And now these guys are delivering more audience on their website. So it's the second largest media website in the UK, behind the BBC, and the 12th largest website. So that's the kind of scale. All from Manchester. So when you think about this marketplace and when you think about Cyprus, you don't have to be in Silicon Valley, you don't have to be in London to be able to create success and strength and make a difference. Second thing I want to say to you, and I've been talking to a few entrepreneurs today, is about the concept of a wave. A lot of you that I've spoken to already are thinking about a business that is relying on another business. In other words, you're thinking about launching something that perhaps needs Apple, needs the iOS platform, is an app. Or you need to partner with something, with another industry or another business. Solly decided very, very early on to back the Facebook world and the social media world at a time when many other media companies did not want to put their content on Facebook. Now, for those of you who know Facebook a little bit, you can't monetize, you don't make any advertising revenue on Facebook, but you build audience. And Solly's view was, I want to build the audience first, and then I monetize later. So think about the wave, think about businesses that might help you get there much more quickly. And partnerships, alliances are incredibly important when you don't have money and you don't normally have power and you don't have history, you don't have influence. You've got to think of ways in which you can bring like-minded businesses, people together, even if they're super big, like Facebook. Catching that wave, identifying that opportunity is really helpful to you. So that's the Lad Bible. Second business I want to briefly talk to you about is in the business of art authentication. And the art business is a huge industry. 39 million works of art are sold every year, generating over $60 billion of revenue, and has gradually been transforming itself because of 2 things. One, big injection of business through emerging markets, China, Russia, India, the Asian markets, bringing a lot more entrants into the art world. building collections, using it as an investment. And the second thing is digital platforms selling art directly to the user. So those two things have been driving the art world. But what we're continually seeing is the art industry facing a big dilemma around fakes and forgeries. So how do you know that something is original when you're buying it and you're not an expert in that marketplace? And that issue is becoming an increasingly big barrier to new entrants coming into the art marketplace. So this business, TagSmart, which I'm very happy to be chairman of and a founder investor, is trying to solve that problem. It's trying to solve the problem of art authentication. And let me introduce you to the entrepreneur. He's very different to the other entrepreneur. This entrepreneur is, he won't mind me saying, 60. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's done a lot of different things. An inventor, a genius, and had a singular vision that he felt he could fix this issue. And he had a real passion for technology and a real passion for mobile technology, and in particular had begun to explore near-field communication, the ability to use mobile devices and microchips and small wireless radios on devices to bring them to life. Normally referred to as the Internet of Everything. I don't know how many of you are experiencing that here in Cyprus. Huge opportunities, big business internationally, in the US and in the UK. So imagine you can tag, you put a device on a piece of art, on the back of the piece of art. You know where it is geographically, you know what condition it is, and you know what it is. There's an undeniable connection. So that whole concept of catching the wave, really important, catching the wave, really important. The problem that we faced with this business and with Steve is that he was too early for the wave. And every time we presented our product to artists were very fearful about putting technology, a chip, onto their artwork. So even though it worked, even though it was a genius idea, and even though we could have launched this globally very successfully, the challenge wasn't the concept, it wasn't the product, the challenge was market adoption. And immediately it became clear, even though we'd been working on this for a long time, we'd been investing in this for a long time, that we were too early for the marketplace. We had to catch the next wave. This one wasn't coming our way. And so we decided to change the technology. Instead of using microchip technology, we used synthetic DNA. Adhesives that were exclusive to us, ink that we got from banknote and passport manufacturers to create something that the artists themselves would feel incredibly comfortable about. And we launched on the 6th of April to great success in the UK, still very early days, still a business that requires adoption, but we've secured a number of very significant partnerships with British artists and partners in the industry to get that affirmation. So that wave didn't come. We had to pivot. And the other key thing with this business is making sure that you spend time with your marketplace. And some of the questions that I asked the entrepreneurs today is, how much time are you spending with this concept in front of your potential customers? I think that's really key. Don't overthink something, work in a lab, and then wait until it's too late because you've decided that's your world, and then it's clear that there's resistance in the marketplace. And I think that's some of the things that we found. So that pivot, change, really important, and work with your customers. So on the 6th of April, there's Steve, there's the applicator. We have 3,500 artworks on our platform. It's a label that you affix onto the back of a piece of art. It is a digital platform as well, and a certificate. And that clip is actually from the BBC News, and 4 million people saw that TV interview. And we were on Sky News this week. We've been on Reuters and the BBC. And I think we've got a terrific chance of building something exceptional for the art industry. So that's Tag Smart. And I want to talk to you about just one other business, and then I'll give you my tips. Television is going through a huge transformation. And one of the big transformations is obviously moving from 3 or 4 channels to hundreds of channels. And not only watching channels in the living room, but watching them on multi-devices. And one of the challenges that the television industry has had is, how do I know how many people are watching my television shows? Okay? And so I want to just share with you the way in which the global industry measures television viewing. It's known as panel data. So in the United Kingdom, there are 5,000 homes that have a box in the living room. And on that living room, there are a number of different sections which are attributed to the family, number of people inside the family. And every time someone goes into that room, it recognizes who that person is. And when they turn the telly on, then you know that something is being watched. So 5,100 homes represent 23 million homes in the United Kingdom. 12,000 people represent 65 million people's viewing habits. That's what we have as a television audience measurement business. And that business, that tool, that currency, is managing an £8 billion business. And it was launched in 1981. And in 1981, the best-selling car was the Ford Cortina Mark V. Anyone been in a Ford Cortina Mark V? Did any of you own a Ford Cortina Mark V? Maybe not. That's the interior of a Ford Cortina Mark V. And that, if you think about it, is the kind of condition, the state, where the technology is today. Of course, it's been improved. Of course, it's been modified. But it's basically that car. That was the best-selling car in 1981. If I show you the best-selling car in 2016, it's the Ford Focus. Look how different that is. Look how things have moved on. And that's the interior of a Ford Focus. Lower price, entry price, than a Mark V Cortina. So, price has gone down, quality increased. You get the picture. You see it all the time. You could use, mobile phones, computers. There's been a massive change. Here's Robert. Robert's 30 years old. He's the founder of TV Beat. He's Slovenian. He is from Maribor. Anyone been to Slovenia? Anyone been to Slovenia? There's a few of you who've been to Slovenia. Okay. Maribor has a population of 90,000 people, by the way. And Maribor was the place that built this business. So I know some of you think about Nicosia and you think about Cyprus, but we had 13 engineers in Maribor, in Slovenia, at the launch of this company. We then moved to Ljubljana, and last year we moved to Zagreb. But another key thing about the success of TV Beat was making sure that we had a resource that we could afford, people who were incredibly passionate, and we didn't need to be in London to be able to launch this business. There are other businesses that are in Silicon Valley, there are other businesses in London. We wanted to take advantage of some of those smaller markets. So we launched this business in 2013. Our first contracts were in Slovenia, in Serbia, in Croatia, where we could build a relationship and a reputation. And then we began to move our business a lot more into the major markets in Europe. Now, one of the key things that's important for startups is year one, great excitement. Year two, you start to get business in. Normally, year two, year three is where some of the pressure begins to rise, because that's when you've got to start to deliver bigger deals, and when you're presenting your business plan, year one's like this, year two's like that, and year three's always a big, lovely target. So those years tend to require big deals. And they tend to require what I call as elephants. Let me put an elephant up. These are the big deals. You need to get an elephant. And not that I would ever profess to killing an elephant, but I'm trying to give you a picture of the scale of what you're up against. Big game hunting is really difficult, really challenging. And startups have to think incredibly carefully about how they can win when you're working with big corporations who have a terrible habit of working at a much slower pace than you, who have a terrible habit of changing their management, changing their mind, slowing things down, stealing your ideas, taking your people. So anything around big game hunting is all about the team that you put together and the preparation. So think very carefully about that phase in your development in the business that you have, and the fact that you will need to begin to think about closing big deals. They're incredibly attractive, but they take an enormous amount of energy. So you have to balance the success rate with these kind of deals and the return that you're going to get. Do not back every single deal that's big game, and use your entire network to be able to help you win in these kind of negotiations. And that's what we had faced at TVB. We had a great business, real interest, but no one knew the companies that we were dealing with when we were thinking about the UK and we were thinking about the US market. And I'm delighted to give you an example of a big deal that we closed on the 18th of March. This is all very, very new, where we became a partner with a very significant platform in the UK. And this wonderful business has 2 million set-top boxes, so we are now powering a very significant partner in the UK. Key point when you're looking at how you build your business. Okay, so what have we spoken about? Well, we spoke about location. I thought I'd emoji the summary slide. So we've at the Lad Bible, we've spoken about location, catching the wave, pivoting at Tag Smart, thinking about how you change and adapt to changing marketplaces, looking at listening to your market, and then TVB. It doesn't all have to be in London. There's lots here. There's lots of opportunities in markets like this you have to take advantage of. Of course you need the financial structure. You need the investment market to be there. You need the technology to be there. But the people certainly are here. The energy is here. The knowledge is here. And the profile of young people is definitely here. And then lastly, be careful when you hunt elephants. They're dangerous. They're very important, but they require a lot of planning. Okay, so I'm now going to give you 4 thoughts that I find work for me. I'm not sure they're going to work for you. I hope they work for you, but I found them very, very, very useful. The first is the art of nudging. The art of nudging. Really tough today in an accelerated marketplace where everyone's super busy. I mean, the amount of emails that we have to face, the amount of disruption that we face, getting attention, getting people's attention is incredibly challenging, incredibly difficult, particularly when you're an entrepreneur, particularly when you're a startup. So how can you get standout in a very cluttered, busy world? And I'm going to give you a couple of examples about how I find standout and nudging works. Now, I'm going to warn you, they're old-fashioned, they're old school, but I found them to work incredibly well. Don't laugh, because I'll take it really badly. Who writes letters here? Okay, there's about 5 of you.
Emails count?
No, emails do not count. I have found that the world is littered with unread emails, unread texts. busy, snatching responses. But there's one thing that you will do if you send a letter is someone's going to open it. There's a physical experience. There's a thought process in what you write. And one other thing I found is people don't know what to do with your letter when they've read it. You know, they won't throw it away. They might do, but there's something very, you know, physical, obviously, but emotional. So I would ask you I'd ask you to think about that. Is if you want to influence someone, send a letter, send a little card, and that's a wonderful nudge. And if you're really bold, and I know this is Ernest Hemingway, for those of you who don't know, get a typewriter from a second-hand shop and type a letter. And it's amazing the feedback you will get. So I know that's some of you are thinking, what is a typewriter? Where do I find one of those? But we're all desperately trying to be unique, and we're all desperately trying to be different, and desperately trying to think of new ways. I mean, if you look at it, there's been a resurgence in vinyl, in records, right? So people are going back to the old stuff and get ahead of the curve, and that's one thing I would recommend. The second I would recommend is what I call the yes, no, maybe game. One of the things that kills businesses is the world of maybe. So here's what happens. You're sitting down with your management team, or you're sitting down as a team, and one of you asks the other, what's going on with these deals? How are we going to close? We should close. When are we going to close? In the next few weeks. And you go down the list of prospects, you go down the list of business opportunities, and what you begin to realize is you've got a whole host of maybes. And that world of maybe kills your business. You want to be in the world of yes or no. And you need to be able to create an environment where you can challenge each other to get into that world of yes or no. And particularly in a marketplace like this, where there is sensitivity to challenge, I sense that. Cypriots are respectful. Perhaps they're not used to that big challenge environment that you get in the west coast of the States. You're going to find that being in the maybe world is going to be a dangerous place for you. So please ask yourself what kind of phase any deal, any prospect, any business is in. And ask yourself, how do I get to yes? And I will accept a no. I just won't accept a maybe. And one of the tools I've used over the years is a truth pill. Because again, you know, one of the challenges with small businesses and startups is when you decide that it's not going to work. Unfortunately, a lot of businesses don't work. And what you need to be is an environment where you can challenge each other to come to that scenario, to come to that conclusion. Or have the confidence to be able to know that someone in your team isn't doing what you need them to do. They're not delivering their side of the bargain. So try and create an environment where you can take a truth pill. I used to have a poster up in the office at Disney with the pill. And every time we had a big management meeting, and the first time I put a management team together, they were brilliant people. They didn't get on with each other. There was no relationship whatsoever. They had a very tense, difficult first 6 months. And what we couldn't do is create honesty, we couldn't create transparency, we couldn't create truth. And a startup, this is a nightmare scenario for you. If your investors aren't truthful to you, if your partners aren't truthful to you, if your people aren't truthful to you, you're not going to win. So please be very sensitive about that. And then lastly, think about your network. Think about who are the people in your world that you can use to create success. So stick yourself in the middle of that spidergram and think of everybody that you know, everybody that can help you win. And then ask all your people in the same team to do exactly the same and try and map them. And if you're trying to hunt elephants, put the elephant's name in the middle there and think of everybody that you think you can reach who can influence the success of that elephant. So spidergrams, again, slightly old school, really helpful to crystallize not just the people you know, but the people in your team that you may know. So, I hope that you've got some sense of a few entrepreneurs' views, a few little tips from me. This guy is still awake. By the way, for those of you who are curious, the clock looks like it's 8:30. When I pulled this image from the internet, I don't know what you think, but does it look like 8:30? What time do you think it is? It's about 8:30. It's either 8:30 in the morning, he should be up, or it's 8:30 in the evening, far too early to go to bed. We can discuss what he's up to at that time of day. But I'm delighted that I'm here. I'm very grateful and privileged to be here. I'm honoured. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm very happy to answer any questions. Thank you. I'm always fearful that my sister's going to ask the first question. She knows the tough ones.
You said that you weren't very educationally pushed when you were younger, that you weren't really into school, that you didn't find that helped you, but you were a Harvard alumni. Do you not think that that sort of gives the message? Because, for example, my dad, whenever I heard that, whenever I talk to entrepreneurs and everything, I'll ask them, did you like school? Blah, blah, blah. And they would all say to me, no, I wasn't very educational, didn't like it. And from a young age, I got the message of, I don't need to go to school. Steve Jobs didn't finish college, I don't need to. And I find that so many people say that you don't really need education, you've got the ideas, everything like that. Do you not feel that your education did help push you further than you could have without it?
Well, I went to Harvard I went to Harvard in 1999. So I was working for a company called EMAP. I launched a business. It worked well. And at the time, and by the way, that's one advantage, I think, with big businesses, education and learning. And I'm slightly worried that small businesses don't do enough education and learning, and the technology industry doesn't do enough. But in 1999, a company decided to send me to Harvard for 3.5 months on the general manager program. And I regret not learning more at school. I just couldn't connect with the education system. It wasn't, my parents pushed me, but it just wasn't the right time. Funny enough, when I went back into the classroom, I really enjoyed it. But the conversation was slightly different, because the conversation was about business and business solutions. It wasn't the abstract. I was not good in the abstract. I was much more effective in the practical. But I'm slightly conflicted because my kids, I've got 3 kids, and 2 of them went to university. My youngest decided not to, because he decided that work experience was the best journey for him. And so you just have to look at the child in front of you and see where you think the best route and journey is. Thank you.
Can I add something on this? When you say that when you were younger, as a child, you went to school and find it too abstract and you had no interest in it, but when we went later, and it was more practical and connected to business, the reason was also, one of the reasons was also because you already acquire experience and things which look abstract. Earlier years didn't look abstract anymore. So the critical question is here, how can we give the younger children some kind of either the experience, convert that abstract into something that of interest to them. And I was very impressed what you said about the Lat Bible, that kids are extremely interested in stories that capture their imagination. Okay, and they care about social issues, they care about education, they care about many things, but you have to relate it to what concerns them, their interests. You find the right media, the right way, the right example, the right practicality. What do you have to say about it? What did you learn working with the lad Bible and so on about this?
Well, I think
How to train younger kids?
Yeah, I think to your point, I think there's two styles of education. One is prescription, which is we want you to learn this by this time, we want you to achieve this, and it's transmit. And the other style is inclusive education, which is how do we encourage young people and kids to be interested in learning, whatever it is. And two of my kids grew up in a school that was inclusive, and one of my kids grew up in a school that was prescriptive. And the prescriptive education he loved, because that's his DNA, and the inclusive education was what my other two kids loved. So I think you have to look at the child, and unfortunately the education system, and I'm not close enough to it, and there are experts in the room that are much closer to it than me. I think that there's too much prescription. I'd like to see an education system where we focus on kids really wanting to learn. And once they want to learn, once they've got that bug and that thirst, then we can throw the stuff that we need them to learn to pass a particular exam.
You have to connect them.
But you have to connect. But the other thing I think, if I could do something here, what I think is really important is an education system that is much more practical, much more in the real world. I'd love to see kids learn how to code. Because I think if you could create an environment where over the next 5 to 10 years, and it's a long-term play, you could teach your kids, our kids in this country, to code, it will be a massive advantage. You won't see it for a while. The payoff is much longer, but you create an asset.
The problem is convincing the politicians that this is value. Actually, we are trying to do that with the help of UCL.
Yeah.
To convince the government. But the government sees the payoff. What is the payoff to the next election? All the governments, the politicians, that's the way they think. So we have a problem there.
Yeah.
Because as you say, the payoff is in 10 years.
The payoff is much later on.
This is a problem.
But I think that's the different styles of education, inclusive or prescriptive education.
Thank you, Tom, for your presentation. It was amazing. I have a question about interaction with customers, especially for startups at early stage when they are under development. How often you should actually communicate with your market while you're at the development stage? And you know, when you're in touch with your customers, there are many changes and ideas they are entering to your idea. And how you apply these changes, because there are too many, and then you get to the decision-making points that yes, no, or maybe. So.
Yeah. So the thing about asking questions to customers is that there's always a danger the customer doesn't know that the product you're about to launch is what they really want in the future. So if Mark Zuckerberg asked a bunch of people whether they want what he's now built, they'd probably say no thank you. If B-Sky B in the UK, for those of you who know the television system in the UK, said we're going to give you 355 football games a year and we're going to ask you to pay £35 for it, they'd probably say no. So I think there's always a danger that too much interaction, you have to have a singular vision. You have to have a view that this is the world I want to go into. And you need affirmation. You need to know whether you're going left or right, you're going too far left or too far right. I think that's very important. But I think if you design something and you ask 50 people for the answer, you're going to get an ugly monster. But you just need to balance it. You need to balance it. I wouldn't build my world just on that, because an entrepreneur, a business, must have a singular vision and a belief system that is what people will want. But keep on checking it. And one thing that I've always found is that your investors will ask you, have you checked this with the marketplace? Even if there's resistance, having that intel, that data is going to be very important. So don't let it drive you completely to that world, because you have to believe in it, but help it guide you.
Thank you for some really great tips. I think the first thing I'm going to do is dig out my parents' typewriter.
Yeah.
Which I think I know where it is. A couple of questions. What keeps your drive at those really, really difficult moments in any of the startups and keeps that momentum going? And I don't know whether it links to the second question. How does Childline come into play in the startup thinking and drive, whether it does or not? Thank you.
Yeah. So it's very hard to answer the first one. I mean, I think one of the key components of my design is fear of failure. So I don't know whether that's a Greek characteristic, or I don't know whether it's my parenting, I don't know what it is, but the fear of not pulling it off has always been that, you know, a part of what's been driving me. Could be that I didn't have a strong education, so I couldn't compete in that playground, so I wanted to compete in another playground. So that could be one. I think winning is a characteristic that all entrepreneurs, people in business like. It's a great buzz. It's kind of, you know, a great feeling, and affirmation that you're doing the right thing. So, but I think that first one is quite an interesting one. It's quite a deep one. We probably need a glass of whiskey and a few peanuts and to really go through that. It's probably that. That's probably it. And then
Singular vision be one as well. You have a vision.
I think so. I think that's singular vision. I think so. But I'm always interested, by the way, when I'm interviewing people, I think that the most interesting stories that people give are from 7 to 12 to 13. When I'm interviewing people, I don't want to hear their qualifications and their work experience, because people are very polished at giving you those answers. But if you ask people what TV show did they watch when they were 10, and how did they get on with their sister, and you know what was their favorite toy, they're completely thrown. So it's that. I think it's finding those characteristics in people. And I guess at a very early age, I worked for a man who didn't start with much. You know, I was surrounded by people, Cypriots who came over in the 50s, who didn't have much. And I think those kind of characteristics of we've got to survive, we've got to do well, you just soak it up, don't you? So I think that might be it. Childline, the interesting thing about this, the service that's there to help kids and young adults up to the age of 19. And in fact, my wife is a volunteer counsellor. What she does, I could never do. I couldn't take a phone call from a child that is thinking about taking an overdose or committing suicide. But funny enough, the service itself needs technology to help it in today's society. Because some of the challenges that we're seeing with young children are pornography online, sexting, sending inappropriate imagery. By the way, kids are the largest distributor of imagery amongst themselves in playgrounds. So technology is creating a number of different issues that we need to help kids with, and technology can help solve it. So I do think that we are working with a number of startups to help design applications that can help kids. And we're working with a number of the big technology companies to persuade them to be more careful and help be more sensitive and aware to some of the things that can happen. You're only 2 clicks away from some very difficult imagery. And if you're vulnerable, and this isn't just to kids, by the way, this is to the older generation. I think there's things that technology can help. I hope that's answered the question. Thank you. This is our lawyer.
Thank you for a very interesting talk. Most entrepreneurs have some rituals, things that they do daily, which helps them to perform at the top level. So I was wondering, what are your rituals?
Oh, blimey. Should ask my wife. That's a good question. What are my rituals? Sorry?
Do you wake up early
Oh yeah, I like to rise with the sun. I like to rise with the sun. I like early. I don't like late, I like early. That's very important to me. We have a couple of dogs. I love walking with the dogs. I like the outdoor. It kind of creates a good feeling for me, that kind of outer space. That's very important. I like to feel that I kind of do ask myself, what did I do today? That keeps on coming back in my mind. What did I add today? Did I do what I said I was going to do? They're important characteristics. They're rituals. If my kids call me, or if my wife calls me, whatever I'm doing, I always pick up the phone. And I think I try to. Just look at my wife. But you know, I think you can be so immersed in your work, but if your kids need you, you've got to be there for them. Thank you.
We have time for 4 or 5 more questions.
Sure.
Okay.
Question over here. Hi.
Hi, thank you for making the time to be here and to share your experiences with us. Part of what you've been saying really touched me, and I think you've contributed a lot to giving me motivation to keep going into pushing for my business. I have a very simple question for you is, which book made the biggest impression on you, and what book are you currently reading now?
Okay. Business book or book?
Book.
Blimey.
If you want business book.
Business book. I tell you, I don't read a lot. Yes. I do not read a lot. I was addicted to 2 things when I was a kid, food and television. Thankfully, one paid the bills. I really struggle with reading, really struggle with it. Huh? My war books, yes. I do a lot of reading of history, particularly the Second World War. Fascinated by that. Fascinated that not that long ago our world was completely different. Fascinated that not that long ago we weren't worrying about these things, we were worrying about survival and freedom. So that's interesting. Business books, I'm reading a book by Robert Colville called The Great Acceleration, which is all about the speed at which we now have to deal with. That was published a few weeks ago. I was drawn to that. Yeah. Hi. I can hear you and I'll repeat it.
Hello. I'll use this one.
Thank you. Could you tell us, please, what your responsibilities were at Disney? Were you involved in the animation department, the live action, the TV? Were you responsible for any of the creative stuff going on, or only the business side?
No, it's all business. Okay. It's where the money is.
Yeah. That's true.
One of my motivations for joining Disney was I've always dreamt of winning an Oscar. Okay, and I've played that acceptance speech in my mind many, many times, going up there, winning an Oscar. I want to thank my wife, kids. I've always dreamt of it. So when I took the job at Disney, I said, wow, this is going to help me, because film is all about financing. So I thought, I'm going to learn about financing. And I did. And I realized I never want to make a movie, because the creative side of making a film is so hard.
It is.
So hard. Are you?
I'm an animator myself.
You're an animator.
And
okay.
I did an internship at Disney. You know,
yeah, we have a very successful Cypriot called Yodis Gatsambas.
He's a friend of mine. We studied together.
Well, he's the killer animator.
He's developing Flix, actually. He's developing this software to do storyboards and take the storyboards down to production.
Yeah.
So yeah, a very good friend of mine. So. Just to finish this off,
sure.
Did you work at all with animation, or only?
I was distributing all films from Hollywood movie, from Disney films to Touchstone Television to TV shows. I played quite a lot of. I was heavily involved in launching Lost and Desperate Housewives and Grey's Anatomy and a number of TV shows.
Great.
and also animated series. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Good luck. Yes.
Thanks. So working in the US and the UK, you must have seen that they're very private investor oriented, whereas most of Europe, Germany, France, and Cyprus are very bank oriented when it comes to investing in startups and companies in general.
Right.
Do you see that as a boundary? And if so, do you believe that there's ways for us to overcome it other than moving to these countries? Yeah.
I think you need the conditions of success to be here. I mean, I've spent some time with entrepreneurs today. There's some great ideas, but you need money, you need fuel, and growth eats cash.
Yeah.
You know, when you're growing, that's the danger area. Normally, you get enough money for year one, and then you need the big swing and hype and push in year 2 and 3. That's when you need the capital. If the capital is not here, if investors don't follow on, if you can't get that, if there isn't that environment, you can get it from Cypriots, but you need to give them the right tax advantages. And in the UK,
the government has a very important role in this. Obviously.
If in the UK, if I invest in a business, 50% of the investment I put into a startup, I get back from the government. In the first phase, 30% of the investment that I put in, I get back from the government in the second phase. 2 of the businesses I've invested in have received back from the government significant funds in rebates from research and development. You need those. You don't need institutions in the early phase. You need friends and family, but you need people who are going to take a risk to have some chance and some benefit. So the government recognised in the UK we have to create the right conditions, and to do that, they gave people who had already paid tax. You know, you earn 100. If you take 100 home, you've already given 100 to the tax man. Yeah. So they wanted that money to go back into the ecosystem to create employment, and that's what you need.
Thank you.
You need those conditions. Yes.
Hello. You have described as previous some successes of other startups. I want to see in parallel their financial statements in each stage. In example, the Lad Bible, they had the idea. What was the status of their bank account there? After they went to the development, did they found any funding? Did they, let's say, bootstrapping or whatever?
Yeah. Funny enough, the Lad Bible has never had any outward investment, hasn't needed it. Started very small, found a way of monetizing revenue through local businesses, and started with a small team in Manchester, low cost, and didn't need a phase of funding. So that's not, in a sense, the usual experience. What the usual experience is, you get a little bit of cash, and you present a plan that you're not going to deliver, and then you run out of money. And then you have frustrated investors who say, hold on, you told me you were going to get much faster. So normally what you need to do is persuade your investors. There's a lot of feedback coming back from here, but if you persuade your investors to follow on, find ways of keeping your investors very informed of your journey. So all I want to know is that you're doing the best you can, and that you're not in the world of maybe. Sorry to come back to that. I get very nervous with entrepreneurs who are not clear about the things that go wrong. And I'm much more interested in entrepreneurs who know what they've done that doesn't work. And I get slightly nervous when I feel as though I'm not hearing the key picture, the real issue. So, the art business, we needed to pivot very clearly. We got the intel from the market. We had invested quite a lot, but a lot of the technology we took into the next phase, but we had to inject, obviously, more funds to be able to do it. And the TV Beat business, we were cracking the market in small territories, but we needed to put more money in and invest to give us time to hunt one of the big elephants. Does that help you? Yeah? Good.
My question is about mentoring. You hear a lot about mentoring and finding a good mentor. What's the best way to do that? And would you consider to be a mentor in startups in Cyprus?
I love, and my wife will hopefully concur. I love talking to young people at the beginning of their career. I get a big buzz about it. I've done quite a lot of mentoring. Disney were very good at that. Endemol were also good. I don't know. No one's asked me, so I don't know about what happens. I'm delighted to be here, and who knows where this journey in Cyprus will take me. But I do think that that relationship is very, very important. Find someone who has time. Do not find a mentor who is a rock star who can't give you any time. So really think about the amount of time, because you need to be able to have a mentor you can call at that moment. It's not, well, we're seeing each other in 2 weeks. It's gone by then. And so small, sharp conversations, quick conversations, those kind of coaching conversations, I think are much more powerful than agreeing you're going to sit down with someone every 2 or 3 weeks. Sorry?
What about parents as mentors? Is that a good idea or a bad idea?
That's a great question. I think that they are, amazing mentors. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. We're going over here. They're amazing. They're amazing. What I've always found is that you need to find someone who really understands your world. Okay, so from a general point of view, absolutely a parent, because they know you, and that makes a big difference, obviously. But I'm thinking of a mentor that has a set of experiences that you can't draw, and that you may not find from a parent. You may not, but absolutely. I think you start, put your name in the middle, and think of everybody that can help you. And mum and dad are definitely going to be there, of course.
I think one question I make. We have a lot of people who do startups here. One day they will go in front of investors wanting money. You have been an investor as well.
Yeah.
Who would you advise, or rather differently, what you are looking in a startup to put your money in? What are the things, 1, 2, 3, 4?
Well,
someone makes a pitch to you.
Yeah, I mean,
what are the things you are looking for?
I'll only invest in businesses that I think I can add something rather than just money. So if I can't add anything in that business, it could be the best idea. If I can't add either part of my network, part of my experience, I won't invest. I'll always invest in the people. So if something doesn't feel right with the people, I'll shy away. And thirdly, whether I think that they're going to catch a wave. I'm interested in the wave. I'm interested in, it's not just the idea, it's the timing. And the wave is very important to me.
Last question, I've been very patient.
Yeah. Hi.
Thank you for the insight.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. My question is divided in 3 parts. First part is, do you watch Game of Thrones?
Do you know, I don't. And I'm frustrated about that because I was a big Lost fan.
Oh, okay.
But there's so many plot reveals in Game of Thrones because I've missed so many seasons. I know who's died, who's coming back, what's happening. I'm now slightly, but I'm going to get to it.
Yeah, too many deaths.
I'm going to get to it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I will skip the second part because it was about the series.
I haven't seen it. Okay.
The third part is, in your opinion, what is the impact in the field of media and in the media in general of this TV series? What is the aftermath of this series?
Game of Thrones?
Yes. Because the producers say that they brought new techniques to the production and stuff.
Yep.
What is going to be next in the? It's a difficult question.
Well, I think just more stepping back a second, television has never been as good as it is today.
Yeah.
There's a book which to your question, I think is a terrific book if you're interested in media, called Everything is Bad for You. Everything good. No, sorry. Let me start again. Everything bad is good for you. Everything bad is good for you. And his premise is that computer games, television. The reason why I liked it is I watched so much of it. I felt good at the end of this book. But the premise is that complex television plots help stimulate the mind. And what we're seeing is drama that's much more complex today than we did 10 years ago, where it was much more episodic. There was a challenge, someone gets murdered, police go in, they solve the crime, the next episode. You're seeing much more complicated plot lines. So I think the writers are thinking of more complex storytelling. I think that's one characteristic of change. And then the other is digital, and the ability to shoot on phones and to shoot in ways and edit and get to market much more quickly. Yeah. And the other, just the distribution, just one other thing, piracy has meant that distribution businesses have to get their content to the consumer much more quickly. So Game of Thrones, this season, there was an episode aired in the US last Thursday, I think, or Wednesday. In the UK, you can now watch it at something like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So that I think that speed of delivering content is another characteristic of what technology's done.
Thank you. I just have one really quick question. Like with TVB and Tag, what's the other?
TagSmart.
TagSmart, sorry, yeah. They were businesses for big corporations mostly. So did you actually use social media to promote these companies? Were they required in any of your promotion?
Well, they're both B2B businesses. So in a sense, they're not B2C where you use social media to help amplify. We do use social media, but not in the same way as the Lad Bible needs to. So no, I think what more TV beat than TagSmart, because actually the one thing about the art industry is it's very fragmented. There's not one big player. There's lots of galleries, lots of artists, huge volume of art. Whereas in the TV industry, there are 4 or 5 major players, and that's where it's not about marketing. It's more about just thinking how you hunt that big game, and you do use marketing and some of the things that you've done to make sure that the marketplace is aware of you, but not significant. I think people need a beer.
Yes.
Come on.
Wine rather, yeah.
Come on.
Well, yes.
Yes, you have.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a few words about my brother as we grew up together. You want me to speak up a little bit? I'm okay. You want me to stand up? Okay.
She is.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I just want to say that growing up with Tom was very inspirational. And I remember Tom always used to fix things. So if he wanted to learn something new, he would make sure he conquered it, always. Extremely positive, always positive. Let me just get my breath here. And in the 30 years that I've been in Cyprus, he's always been by my side. He's a great father, he's a great husband, he's a family man, and he's always seen the glass half full, always. Amazing. Amazing guy. Had to say that. Focused, always focused.
Feels like
always giving me good advice.
Going on here. I'm still alive, by the way.
Okay. Well, with these great words and on behalf of the IDEA program, I would like to thank Tom for his very exciting talk and the effective handling of audience questions. Thank you again, Tom.
Thank you.
Also, I would like to thank my colleague Simo Simonidis for connecting all of us with Tom. Thank you, Simo. And of course, IDEA is proud of its two co-founders, the Bank of Cyprus and the Cyprus International Institute of Management, for making this event possible and making the IDEA program possible as well. And please join us for a networking cocktail outside, where you have the chance to meet 4 of the teams of IDEA program, and please have a chat with them and help them out in their startup. Thank you all.